Now we got this game, Ohio State, Texas, the 8th seed versus the 5 seed here. This game, it's not really a home game for Texas, but it's pretty close. In Arlington, Texas, at the Cotton Bowl, it's going to be a fun one. Let's start off with Ohio State here. Um, I mean, we know how teams get hot in the postseason. We've seen teams make runs before and just, head to the national championship or head to the NBA Finals, Super Bowl, because they caught fire. They caught fire at the right time, and it didn't matter if they were the home team or the road team. Didn't matter if they were the best team or not. If they got hot at the right time, they really made their way to the Super Bowl or finals or national title or whatever in whatever sport. But I will say, what if that team that gets hot also happens to be the most talented team that is in the field? Because that's what's happening with Ohio State right now. If you take a look at what Ohio State has done, like right out the gates, uh, they've won the toss, gone out and scored on the first possession each time in the past two games. And so if you're Texas, you're like, man, you don't want to hinge everything on a coin toss, but you're like, can we get the ball first? Please, can we win the toss? Um, I will say Texas does have the better defense out of the two teams they played in Oregon and Tennessee. Although, again, I really like Tennessee's, but you saw what they did to them. So I think if you're Texas, you're like, please let's win the coin toss. Please let's win the coin toss. But this Ohio State team has gotten hot at the right time. I don't know what has happened since the Michigan game. A fire has been lit under them. You saw them demolish Tennessee. You saw them demolish Oregon. It was not a game at halftime. They completely had Oregon in fits by the time it got to half. So you take a look at Ohio State coming into this game. Everything is clicking for them on all cylinders on the offensive side. Chip Kelly, Ryan Day, they've got a good game plan going on with Will Howard playing the best football of his career. You got the running and the passing game clicking at the same time with Judkins and Henderson playing well. And then the passing game was the thing they really need to do in the Michigan game. And they figured out, hey, let's throw it to Jeremiah Smith. Let's throw it to Carnell Tate and Mecca Ibuka. Let's throw it to those guys. It seems like a pretty good idea, you know? And credit to Chip Kelly and Ryan Day. They've been able to find ways to scheme those guys open. I don't know how many times Jeremiah Smith and those guys were left open. You're like, how do you leave those guys open? You know, it's just like, huh? It's a head scratcher. So they've done a really good job offensively. Then defensively, under Jim Knowles, they've been attackers right there on the defensive side. They've really got into uh, being an attacking style defense, really blitz these teams, get in their faces. And credit to their DBs, Bosin and Denzel Burke. They've done a really good job. They had some struggles in the season as far as DPIs, but they've done a really good job of that so far. And then, of course, you got Caleb Downs, who's a dynamic safety, is the best player on that defense that can be a game wrecker on that side of the ball. So everything is clicking for Ohio State. Offensively, defensively, everything is going their way. Coaching, they're putting their guys in the best spots to succeed. They're just on fire right now. And we know how good teams are when they catch fire at the right time. But again, when you have this talented of a group catch fire, that's a scary thought. Just ask Tennessee, just ask Oregon. That they can definitely answer that question for you. So for Ohio State, you're facing the toughest defense that they have played all season long in Texas. This is a really good group for Texas. You take a look at up front, they got two good defensive tackles in Broaden and Collins, Burke as one of the edge rushers, and then the freshman Colton Simmons, who's played really well on the other, who can contribute. You get a dynamic linebacker in Anthony Hill that's a sideline to sideline guy. And he's a really aggressive tackler as well. He's not afraid to hit you. And then that secondary is probably one of the best that Ohio State has faced all season long. You got the Thorpe Award winner and Jahdae Barron. You got Malik Muhammad on the other side. You got Andrew Makuba at safety. So it's a really good group there with those DBs. But this is going to be the toughest matchup that they've had because this group of receivers is better than anything they've faced up to this point. So for Ohio State, I think, if they get off to a fast start and Texas kind of stalls out on their first drive, we could be seeing something happen like we did in those first two games where Ohio State just really starts to take control and just boat races Texas to win this game and head off to the national title. But I do think Texas is the second best team left as of now, and I think Texas, at their best, can give Ohio State a game in this one. I am going to take Ohio State in this one, but I think there are paths for Texas to go and win this game. It's first off, you talk about how hot the Ohio State offense has been. It's kind of gotten to the situation where it's a you can't stop it. You can only hope to contain it. I think for Texas, that's what you got to do. You got to be able to you got to be able to contain them, make them kick field goals, and get them in, long situations, second and long, third and long situations. Will Howard is a little bit of an improviser as well, can make plays with his legs, so you have to keep that in mind. But I think you got to keep them off schedule. You got to try to find ways to contain them, just not let them catch any momentum and just put up touchdowns in bunches. Again, make them kick field goals. Get them down in the red zone, have them kick field goals. And Texas has done a really good job of that. They're one of the best red zone defenses in the country. So they got to be able to do that to really help their case on offense. Now, as far as offense, you take a look at Texas, and we talked about it after the Arizona State game. That game was a little bit concerning for Texas for a couple of reasons. One, on the offensive side of the ball, the running game was not working at all. Arizona State was able to, play them really well against the run and be able to be gap sound and be able to set the edges, and they really stopped the running game. That running game for Texas has been great all season long, and here you go against Arizona State and nothing. Less than 100 yards. I believe it was like 53 when we took a look at it. So obviously, you can't let that happen in this one. You got to have a more balanced attack. And then you take a look at defensively, they gave up over 500 yards to Arizona State. And you take a look at the talent differential between Arizona State and Ohio State. Arizona State's here, Ohio State is here. It's not even close. So the fact that you gave up that many yards to an Arizona State team who was without their top receiver and Jordan Tyson, that's a little bit alarming here considering how good of a defense you've been all season long, and then that happens, whether that's leaks in coverage, you're not playing great run defense. I mean, Scatterboo had a day against them. And Levitt is a guy that can get out there and scramble, and that's what he did a couple times. So I think if you're Texas, there's a couple concerns there from that. Now, there are paths there to get the win over Ohio State. Again, you got to contain them on offense. And then likewise for Texas, I think, hey, listen, Ohio State's been aggressive. Sark is a really good play caller. He uses a lot of misdirection, a lot of motion. Can they get Ohio State caught up in that? Can they get Ohio State caught up in their aggressive nature and just overplay a couple things and catch Ohio State caught up and trying to be aggressive and maybe hit a big play? Kind of like what we saw in the first play for Texas against Arizona State, where they had an RBO, and before you know it, 2 plays in, they score a touchdown. So can they do something like that with the misdirection that they're known for with Stark and his play calling? Can they get Ohio State caught up and confused there and maybe get some big plays out of that? This group of receivers for Texas, it's a really explosive group. Isaiah Bond, Golden, Bolden, Wingo, those guys are really explosive wide receivers. Gunnar Helm, the tight end, is a really underrated tight end too. He can go out there and make some plays too. So I think you take a look at that. They got some speed out there, and Quinn Ewers can throw a really good deep ball. Maybe you can get Amy Boson and Burke caught on a couple plays and get some DPIs, get you an easy first down right there, and move the ball 15 yards and just like, okay, let's go attack, attack, attack. Because I think that's what you got to do with Ohio State. I think you got to attack, attack, attack. You can't nap on that side. You got to be constantly on the prowl, looking to make big play after big play and move the ball. You can't take any negative plays. You can't be in second or third and longs. You can't do that. and no unnecessary penalties either. So it can't be a repeat of the Georgia game. And, you take a look back at that game in October, and that specific game, you saw what happened. Georgia just was all aggressive on that side of the ball and really got into Texas. The offensive line couldn't do a thing. Georgia got into short fields. They were able to score and win the game and really can kind of control it. They were able to get in the backfield a ton. You can't let this game become you can't let that game become this game either, because Ohio State's they got a really aggressive defense with Sawyer, Williams, JTT. Those guys can get after it in the run game and the pass game. They can absolutely do that. So I think if you're Texas, you got to use some misdirection, use that to your advantage, use your motion. Those can be some really easy tells. Find out, okay, are they in man or are they in zone? And then like, okay, we can take the best matchup, find easy spots in the zone to go and soft spots in the zone to go and attack. I think that can really help out as well. And then this running game has got to get going with Jaden Blue, with Wisner. That they got to get going. It's going to be a tough challenge for them. And Texas does have a good offensive line. Now they have had a couple of their guys get banged up. Jake Majors, Cameron Williams, they've both been banged up. I think they're probably going to be good to go. You got Kevin Banks out there at left tackle. It's a good offensive line, but this is probably one of the best defenses that they have seen all season long. So it's going to be a matchup where both these teams are seeing the best that they've seen all season long. But for Texas, they got to be able to hit on their explosive plays when they can. They got to attack, 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 and they got to get that run game going to marry the pass game and the run game. And again, you don't want you say the coin toss is really key here, but if you're Texas, I think you'd like to get the ball first and make sure that you had the first possession, so that way you can go and score, and Ohio State has to answer you, and then they can go back and forth all night long, and we can have a fun time watching this game. But again, I'm going with Ohio State on this one, which leads to that chaotic example of Penn State, Ohio State in the national championship game. And there's 10 days in between that. So the next 10 days, it's going to be really crazy if that happens. The next 10 days for Peter Lewis will be absolutely manic for him and nervous and trying to see this version of Ohio State Penn State, which we've already seen it happen before this year and we've seen it happen years past. It's not gone well. Again, 4th and 5 anybody. So I got Ohio State in this one. I got Penn State in our other semifinal. So Ohio State, Penn State, all Big Ten matchup here for the national championship on January 20th. So that's what I have. So we should be in for a fun weekend, everybody. It's going to be a fun weekend of football with the college football playoff, wild card weekend. It's going to be a fun time. Going to be a really good weekend.